So, Mary, did you enjoy being a clown? It was alright. I just hope this doesn't give one of our kids a complex or something in the future. So, there's an exercise in fandom. Let's call it pick one for now. Basically, if you had to choose one episode, and only one episode, to show to a complete newbie in order for them to get what the show is about and discover if they would like it or not, what episode would you pick? It may not necessarily be the best episode, it may not be the worst, but it's an episode that best expresses in total the very essence of the show. Because I have to say that this was the most representative episode of this entire season of the Winchesters, and I doubt the finale will topple that crown. Because this episode does several things pretty well that has real potential in a prequel series, and then it makes some major missteps. Let's take Rowena and the B-plot about witches as our first example, which was actually related to the arc. Getting to see Rowena again, great. It's awesome to see her dabble around a bit in a time she would be alive, and it was great to see her and Ada bounce off each other. But then you have that moment of, oh, this crystal is all you need to win, pulled literally out of thin air. Do I even have to explain how bad that writing is? You do not want to do that in your plots. Not without establishing something like Rowena having an answer or being on the search for a crystal. The underground witch hangout was also a fun bit of world building and design, but then you have the moment of Ada begging the others for help. That is such a cliche and just doesn't give the scene much oomph. Remember Supernatural's episode 507, The Curious Case of Dean Winchester, and the poker game at the climax? That sequence was wonderfully done because you thought Sam was getting emotional and making mistakes, only for it to then reveal that he had been pulling an elaborate con job all along and had tricked the other witch into losing. I really wanted Ada to pull something like that here. To go ahead and lose the poker game, but to reveal that victory wasn't the point. She had been actually gathering information from all the other witches about their plans, the Akrita, or whatever. It would have then all played off much better when she runs into Rowena, and then they could have had some kind of elaborate back and forth game of deception for the rest of the episode. And yes, I am aware of the irony because I have often complained about how the show will refuse to make their characters flawed and vulnerable, but this one time I think they overcompensated in the other direction. Ada has shown plenty of complexity, flaws, and vulnerability this season. This time I really wanted her to get a win in her own way. Then there was the main monster of the week. On the one hand, I'll grant that they did something new, and it was visually interesting with the carnival and large crowd of extras going on. On the other hand, this is a great example of what I call second draft writing. It's just a little more polished than the first draft. There's not really anything that's wrong in the story. It all functions on a very basic level. There's not any big mistakes. But it could all be so much better with just the most minor adjustments. For example, Latka and John go raid a library to get information on the monster they are hunting. This is good. It had started to come off kind of silly that this crew just always happened to have the book they needed. What is annoying is that Clarence, who has been researching all this for 30 years, did not have a lot of that lore at hand. It would have been much better had Clarence already possessed what Lotta found in the book, but be missing the final details which the Scooby Gang help uncover because they are more experienced and plugged into a world he doesn't know about. Like maybe Clarence had the name of the occultist who made the magic mirror, and our monster hunters cross-reference that to get the solution. Or maybe you could even have had the two plot lines briefly cross there with them asking Ada or Rowena for a hint about how the magic works. It was good they at least got the ticket they needed from Clarence, which is again why I want to stress that there's a lot of good in this episode. But while they were doing great with that as a prop, you then have this moment at the end where Carlos is trying to reach out and connect with Roger, and he has nothing. Not a photo of Roger and Clarence, not a photo of his parents, not a favorite toy or trinket of the boys, nothing. Remember this scene at the end of Supernatural's season 10? Yeah, I have a lot of issues with it, but one brilliant move they did do with that scene was the family photo produced by Sam. When you're writing, don't underestimate how effective props and objects can be in enforcing emotional moments. It's not that you have to have the right prop for a scene, but the right prop is like the right seasoning. It can enhance and better bring out the flavor, the feeling that you're going for. It makes it more real. Or let's go back to when John decides to go do research with Latka. That's a great idea. Mix up the group a bit, have some new dynamics, shake themselves out. But then later in the room, John acts like he had no reason to go with Latka. In just the previous episode, there was discussion about John doing meditation and seemingly talking with Latka about his troubles. But now, in this perfect moment, there's none of that. He doesn't talk about not having time for meditation or being unable to do it or anything else like you might expect from what we were told about. Obviously, fiction isn't real, but your task as a storyteller is to create the illusion that it's real, to convince us that stuff is going on when we're not looking. Now, we have complained about all season, the monster of the week being shown in bright lights, but unlike all those other times, this is definitely once where the monster was more scary and bright lighting than not. So a plus to the episode there. So grading everything together, I'm giving this episode a score of 3 out of 5 shells. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but Winchesters is a show which keeps demonstrating a lot of potential, but never quite reaches it. For better or worse, this episode perfectly encapsulates that. We'll see how the finale goes.